Welcome to another week, another show of Hawkeyed with me, Dave O'Hara. Momentarily, you see our buddy Pat Angerer joining us on the screen. Pat, of course, former Hawkeye linebacking great, former Indianapolis Colt linebacking great in the NFL, and now the analyst with Gary Dolphin in the Hawkeye Radio Network, with Kirk Ferentz now being over the 200-win club in the Big Ten, only trailing Woody Hayes now, as we record this on Tuesday afternoon, October 29th, only trailing Woody by 4 games, 5 more wins, and he'll have the record at 206. But as a former player, and I reference all those your former teammates or guys around your era, the feelings you still have for Kirk Ferentz and the happiness and the joy. Yes, you were a part of some of those 200 wins, but man, this couldn't happen to a nicer guy, a better situation. And let's be blunt, Pat, 26 years plus now, you talk about consistency, winning. It may not be to the fans liking all the time, but Pat, a win is a win. 1-0 or 2-0 or whatever it is, we'll take it.
Yeah, I mean, what he does works, and I think the reason why we love him so much is he took us as kids who didn't know what the heck was going on and turned us into men and held us accountable and held us to a higher standard, and the stuff that he instilled in us and all the coaches instilled in us are things that we try to instill in our kids. Now our kids don't listen, but it's it's things that really make us who we are and things that we think about daily. And love that man, love the staff. It's not, it's not for everyone. It's hard. You get pushed to the max. And I just couldn't imagine my life without Iowa football.
The intriguing thing to me, Pat, is I see so many players going through a metamorphosis, or the light switch goes on for them. You talked about this on many of these past shows you've been kind enough to join us on over the years, about how the light switch went on for you. I believe it was your sophomore or junior year against Wisconsin, and that's who the Hawks are playing this year. And now we see this happening almost on a weekly basis with players. That is really interesting because, as you said, your kids don't listen, or we kind of joke about being parents that, hey, kids don't always listen. And you guys go through that with the staff and Kirk Ferentz, and all of a sudden a switch goes on and you say, I got it. Give us a little bit more insight into that again, if you would, please.
Well, yeah, it's, Norm used to always say, it's just throwing mud on the wall and you see what sticks, and you just keep throwing mud on it, and more and more is going to stick. But yeah, for me, it was my sophomore year, and it was when I really took ownership in my life and where my career was at. And, what I learned through the process is the answers to the test are, Coach Ferentz has the answers to the test. All the coaches, they have the answer to the test, and you just got to do what they say, and you're going to be successful, whether it's on the football field or whether it's in life.
I find that fascinating, and again, we get to see that as fans play out almost on a weekly basis. So, Pat, let's talk about Wisconsin upcoming this week. Hawkeyes, of course, another national TV game, 6:30 p.m. kick on NBC. Wisconsin coming off last week, losing to Penn State on Saturday night on NBC, Big Ten Saturday night. Hawks were there just a couple of weeks ago playing. And now the Hawks again at home at Kinnick Stadium under the lights. Going to be fun. Wisconsin coming in at 5-3, Iowa at 5-3. They're both 3-2 in the Big Ten. Of course, it's the big trophy game, border state, all that. And you and I have talked about Wisconsin games in the past. For all the reasons I just mentioned and everything else, Pat, this is a huge game, is it not?
Oh yeah, and it's a huge game for both teams. I mean, this is, I wouldn't say a make or break game, but it's a very important one to see how, the seasons want to be remembered. It's always going to be a physical game. They want to establish a run. They're very similar, obviously very similar to us as far as their approach to the game: run the ball, control the clock, play tough defense.
Well, let you and I talk a little bit about where you feel the defense is right now going into this Wisconsin game.
After the Michigan State game and Childs having the success on the ground that he had, all week I was watching tape on Northwestern quarterback, and he had some wheels, and I think we held him to under 20 yards rushing. I mean, he was their offense, and then the props go to our DNs. They did a good job containing him. You look at that first series that they had, he had some success on the ground. I was kind of like, oh, this is going to be a long day. But they got it ready to go. And I think a lot of it is just it's doing your job. I think there's sometimes in these games where we haven't been very gap sound, and we haven't been sure of exactly what we're doing. But when we know what we're doing, we control our gaps, do our job. We're tough to beat, tough to move the ball on.
Yeah, absolutely. And the thing I find fascinating, Pat, is we all talk about the game. And again, congratulations to Caden Weegan. You've been talking about it all year. He's going to bring one back. He did. So he's the Big Ten Special Teams Player of the Year and getting some national recognition at or near the top of the nation in return yards for punts and kickoff returns. But we talk about the defense did not give up a touchdown this last game against Northwestern. It was a special teams touchdown, speaking of return punts. And then, of course, the pick six the other way from Cade McNamara. So defense pitched the shutout. But you've got to love Caden Weegan because that's where you get most excited. I love listening to you always, you and Dolph. But folks, I encourage you, turn the volume of your TVs down and your radios or listening devices up to listen to Pat Anger and Gary Dolphin as Pat's smiling with us here. But Weegan makes us all get very excited, especially you in the booth, doesn't he?
Yeah, I mean he's dangerous and he's competitive and he's just gritty and there's so many times where he gets the ball and there's people on him and he's gaining 8 to 10 yards on those punt returns. And I have no idea how he does it. I got a feeling that he's probably competitive in a game of checkers. He'll probably fight you over a game of checkers. Like the dude is a competitor. And I know it's a name that gets thrown around all the time when you have good, good returners, but it's like it's got a little bit of Tim DeWhite in there. Tim DeWhite was a fiery guy. He was a guy that would probably punch you over a game of checkers. And all Weegan needs is maybe a barbed wire tattoo on his arm and a little more wiggle. But he plays with that fire, and I think that fire represents what I think of Iowa football, right? What we all think of Iowa football, what we love about Iowa football, and that's why I get so excited, man. The guy's fearless and he's tough, and we're so happy for him to get that touchdown. And too, I mean, our return teams, the blocking's been great. Those guys are fighting; they're fighting the whole time. And obviously, he gave credit to them, and it was really cool when he had that return. Obviously, we're up in the booth with one of the F-18 pilots and interviewing him, and he's an Iowa guy, and it was just a really cool experience.
Yeah, guys, you got to check it out on YouTube. Pat with the fighter pilot and Gary Dolphin in the booth, and high fives and hugs aplenty, but for a lot of plays. But Pat, you keep bringing that enthusiasm because that's what keeps us listening. You had that as a player. You mentioned with Weegan, but it is just so fun to be a part of that, and hopefully this continues. I can't believe as we're wrapping up here, Pat, we've gotten this deep into this conversation this week, and I haven't even mentioned the two words we should be mentioning at the top, Caleb Johnson. And what spurs to my mind is when you talk about all the guys doing the work on special teams. So you get all three teams playing well, special teams, defense, and now the offensive line. Brendan Sullivan seems to bring some wiggle, you mentioned, or some pizzazz to the offense. No slight to Cade. But now we've got Brendan Sullivan in place, and you look at what Caleb Johnson does, and at or near the top of the nation again in rushing. But to see his long runs, and man, I'll tell you, Pat, as a linebacker, you got to be thinking to yourself, this guy, for as big as Caleb Johnson is, and I'm holding it up to the screen, to take that much room, maybe 2 inches of a sliver, and he is through and gone. What an amazing running back.
Yeah, it's he can run you over, and he can also outrun you, which is dangerous. But yeah, and I think it really helped. I mean, when Brendan came in and he had his runs, then the defense kind of was like, okay, now we've got to worry about his legs, and then it opened it up for Caleb, and they worked really well together. And hopefully, Brendan plays really hard, and hopefully he can stay healthy.
Folks, he is Pat Anger, former Hawkeye linebacking great, former Indianapolis Colt in the NFL linebacking great, and now an analyst in the Hawkeye radio booth with our buddy Gary Dolphin. So, Pat Anger, it's always great to see you. We'll catch up with you in a couple weeks, and I probably won't talk to you beforehand. So, safe travels out to UCLA after this big Wisconsin game, Pat.
I appreciate you, man. Thanks for having me, Dave.
You're very welcome, Pat, and thank you. Always great to see you. So for Pat Anger, I'm Dave O'Hara. We'll be back with more Hawkeye in just a few moments.
Hawkeye is brought to you by Bettor Edge, your ultimate social betting marketplace. With no VIG, you're bound to win more on every bet on Bettor Edge. Founded by Hawkeye alum James Siles and proud Iowan Greg Kieski, Bettor Edge delivers an unmatched betting experience. Plus, what's not to love when they're committed to supporting charities and children's hospitals near you? Join the action now. Sign up at bettoredge.com/Hawkeye and get $10 to start winning more today. Bettor Edge, where your social betting means your bets go further and you win more.
Welcome back to Hawkeye with me, Dave O'Hara. Momentarily, you'll see our buddy Sean Bock on the screen. Sean, of course, 24/7 Sports and CBS Sports. As we record this on Tuesday afternoon, October 29th, and of course, Hawkeyes playing Wisconsin. Under the lights, 6:30 kick, national television, NBC, Big Ten Saturday night. Wisconsin comes in at 5-3. The Hawks are 5-3. Both teams 3-2 in the Big Ten Conference. Hawks, of course, coming off that big victory you referenced over Northwestern, and then tough game for Wisconsin losing to Penn State on Big Ten Saturday night last week. So back-to-back Saturday night games for them, where the Hawks played a couple weeks ago, unfortunately, as we remember, against Michigan State, not so well. But time to write that course. And again, Brendan Sullivan now in place. So, Sean, let's talk about it a little bit. Pat Anger and I referenced it in the previous segment. Let's you and I get into detail. Injury report today, and Kirk Ferentz's comments in his presser, and you were for press availability with some of the players, but looks like, sounds like Cade McNamara out with concussion, Reese Vandersey out with a stress fracture, receivers. So those two, Addison Estrenga still out, going to be with that arm, shoulder. And then we had John Nestor out. And then we're going to get Stevens back and Fisher back, it appears as though. Good to see Brendan Sullivan in place. And what a charge he put into the team, Sean, with his running, but his passing. Sean, even his blocking, getting out ahead of Pascuzzi after he completes a pass. You don't see that often, and Pat and I talked about this in the previous segment. You don't see that often, do you, as you're smiling with me, where a quarterback completes a pass, runs past his receiver to do blocking. Pretty cool stuff, Sean.
Yeah, that was definitely a big boost that he brought in. I think it was definitely, there was like a more sense of energy. Like this Iowa team, the thing that I've kind of said throughout the year is like they don't really have that identity that they've had the last couple of seasons, like kind of hanging their hat on defense and special teams. Yes, the offense is a little bit better than it's been in past years, but the defense and special teams unit has kind of taken that step back. So to see like the defense, special teams really kind of, I guess, rejuvenate itself, or at least kind of like, build off of what the offense did and that spark that Sullivan brought in.
Let's talk a little men's basketball, women's basketball. Both teams play exhibitions. By the time this airs, or will have played exhibitions. Men looked pretty good last week, and you and I were talking off here. Let's bring it on here. Cooper Koch, a buddy, or a son of a buddy of this show. We had J.R. Koch on a couple of months ago with Kent McCausland, and we were talking about playing, and Jeff Settles, a guy that's on this show regularly as well for basketball, was doing Big Ten Plus coverage, and it was a neat interview to see post-game. But looks like this Hawkeye team, Sean, and I don't want to put the fun meter out there and say, oh, it doesn't matter if they win or lose. One, Sean, they're going to be very competitive and very talented and are going to score, but it's going to be a fun team. And this is really, as Peyton Sanford and Bryce Sanford told us this summer when they were on this show, this is a very close team early, and you don't see that very often, Sean. This is a very close team, isn't it?
Yeah, it seems like a very tight-knit group. And I think this offseason, one of the things that was mentioned to me was this team felt like it was like 10 or 20 times farther along this year at that time than it was last year at that time. And that's a really refreshing thing to hear too. And, there's a lot of guys coming back. Obviously, you lose some key pieces from the last few years, especially like a Tony Perkins type. But I think this team really gels together well. And I think they fit really well together. And there's, kind of more of a just like the lineups, I think, kind of make more sense, or, depending on which lineups McCaffrey uses, I think kind of the personnel of this team is a lot more, I guess, agreeing with what Iowa has had success with in the past. We know they're going to be a good offensive team. They're going to be able to shoot the basketball. But I think some of the concerns that showed up against Minnesota Duluth, granted, exhibition, you're not using lineups that you usually use for the most part. You're kind of experimenting with things. Granted, I thought they maybe played their starters a little bit much for, an exhibition game, but to each their own. But the defense,
their coach wanted to make a good impression because he's an Iowa City West alum, and a former Hawkeye, so he wanted to make a good impression, obviously.
Yeah, the defense is still going to be a big question mark. I thought there were some, times on Saturday, or on, when was that, Friday, where, Iowa's perimeter defense, on-ball defense was not great. Rotations were kind of slow. And then point guard play too, like Brock Harding didn't have his best game. And I think that kind of raised some eyebrows a little bit, because we've heard a lot about what Harding has done this offseason and kind of the step that he's taken playing that point guard, that main point guard role for the Hawkeyes. And, he's going to be fine, but, it is a valid concern because, where do you kind of allocate those minutes at the point guard position? Because Harding kind of gives you that high risk, high reward type player, while Thelwell is a little more like conservative type player, kind of like in the flow of the offense, floor general, but not as explosive as Harding. How do you kind of balance that? But on the positive side, Josh Dix, Owen Freeman, Peyton Sanford, they did what you want them to do. And, I think Iowa, the bench this year is going to be really key for them. I was a little surprised that they started Laji Dembele at the 4. I know that was the case during the secret scrimmage. Kind of still getting Seydou Traore a little, into the mix and kind of getting him comfortable considering he's a new guy. Laji's been in the system longer, but, the depth on this bench, I think, is really exciting. Like, you can see that growth with Dembele a little bit, his physical growth, and he looked a little bit more comfortable, but perimeter on-ball defense is still going to be something that, I'm a little eerie about with him and just, like, how quickly he can put it together. But with Seydou Traore, like, he just looked like a natural athlete out there. And the way he's able to defend on the perimeter, along with down low and, contesting shots, rebounding, he just does so many things really well, and it's gonna be fun to watch his progression. But you mentioned Cooper Koch earlier. Obviously, having him, was a big bright spot, and Price Sanford as well too. I thought those guys gave some pretty good minutes off the bench, and that threesome right there of Traore, depending if he comes off the bench or not, and Sanford and Koch. Like, I think those guys are just such an pivotal, players of this group. You can talk about Josh Dix, Payne Sanford, Owen Freeman, Harding, and I mean, you can take into account Thelwell too. He's really important. But, for those guys to take that next step this year, I think that's so key. And if you can have Cooper and Price, provide a reliable 3-point shooting from the bench and, have that spacing, because that's what Iowa wants to do this year, space the floor and shoot the three well, because, they kind of lived and died by the mid-range shot last year. And
Yeah.
that's, in this day and age of college basketball, that's not really something that, is a winning recipe, especially with the way that Iowa plays defense, or, the level they play defense, which should be improved this year. But, the kind of jury's still out there. But, if you can have those guys hit threes, reliably, and hit 1 or 2 per game, you put yourself in a much better position. And, if you can get them on defensively too, and, kind of just into the flow of the game, like, you play 9 guys, probably 9 or 10 guys per game, like, you're setting yourself up well.
Well stated by you, Sean. And we'll talk more in the future with women's basketball. Jan Jensen now taking over for Lisa Bluter. Of course, Caitlin Clark's gone, Kate Martin's gone, but you've got Lucy Olson transfer in, the number 3 scorer in the country last year behind Caitlin. And so that's going to be fun to watch. And then you've got Hannah Stolke, of course, back. And so they're on national watch lists already. So, Sean, when we have more time, we spent some time laying out, obviously, a Hawkeye football and then men's basketball. But we'll have more to discuss with Iowa Hawkeye women's basketball. Sellout crowds already. They're sold out for the season. So we know that's going to be great home court advantage. And so when they start playing their exhibitions and games, as the men just have, we'll fill in the blanks there with Hawkeye women's basketball as well. Sean, great to see you again, folks. He is Sean Bock, Iowa Hawkeye beat writer for 24/7 Sports, CBS Sports, and recruiting specialist. We'll talk recruiting with you more next time, too, Sean, with basketball and football. We got a lot going on. Sean, it's always great to see you. Thanks so much for the great conversations. Great to see you again.
Yeah, Dave, thank you for having me, as always.
Truly my pleasure. So for Sean Bock, I'm Dave O'Hara. We'll be back with more Hawkeye to close out the show in a few moments.
You don't have a lot of time to make decisions today if you want to be out front with the newest products. This is Joe Mershman from Mershman Seeds. Did you know that we're one of the first 2 companies to offer Enlist E3 soybeans in the United States? And because of that, you benefit from it. Here's Ben Pieper to tell you more.
With Enlist E3 soybeans, we have a front row seat to the highest yielding germplasm that's on the market. That allows us to focus on the things that matter to you, making sure you get what you ordered delivered on time to ensure the highest yielding soybeans for your farm.
Contact your local Mershman Seeds dealer today. They care and are ready to help you.
Welcome back to Hawkeye with me, Dave O'Hara. Momentarily, you'll see our buddy Scotty Pritchard. Scotty P. Scott Pritchard at Pritchard Wins via social media or PritchardPicks.com. Online, check out his free picks, paid picks. Scotty P, Northeast Iowa native, as am I, and Scott has a 66+ win percentage on his paid picks. And check that out. As you know, folks, you've got to go 52% plus to just break even. And Scotty P exceeding that by great leaps and bounds. 30+ years in Vegas as a full-time professional sports bettor. Scotty P, I got to tell you, what a week it was in the NFL. We have a lot of former Hawks in the NFL, but before we get to that, thanks for joining us. Good to see you. And you ready to get to it, my friend?
Always excited to be on the show once again, my friend.
Yeah, absolutely. So, Scott, a lot of former Hawks in the NFL. George Kittle, a big week last week for the Niners. Sam Laporta catching a touchdown pass. I know we're used to talking Cyclone to Hawkeye touchdown passes with the Niners and Brock Purdy to George Kittle. But David Montgomery running back for the Lions, as you're smiling with me. Former Cyclone running back, touchdown pass to Sam Laporta, former Hawkeye tight end. I like talking about props with you because I think this bears repeating and really needs to be highlighted again. And again, viewers, keep the questions and emails coming for Scott. I love this when you do this for our sports betting segments, viewers. So, Scott, I've had a lot of people say, can you have Scott or Mike or whatever professional sports bettor like yourself that we have on each week in this segment? The props are there for him, Scott. Let's talk a little bit more about props and how it plays for the advantage bettor like yourself.
I love betting on props. I love betting first half, second half. I mean, I'll bet sides, totals, money lines, but for all intent and purpose, the sports books have 7 days, David, to get the point spread and the total right. I love betting half times because they have about 8 to 10 minutes to get the number right. Now, when it comes to props, you are onto something, as are your viewers, because it's a bit of a niche, a bit of a niche market. Find a niche, get rich, I like to say. There is a reason why they really limit you, especially guys like myself here in Vegas, because it's a very beatable market. It's, I respect the odds makers. They do this 24/7. More times than not, they have the same exact information that I do, but their job, respectfully, David, is a lot more challenging than mine because they have to post odds on sides, totals, money lines, props, game in, game out. I get to spot my picks and pick my spots. So I'm a bit of a cherry picker, and I can tell you that it is a very beatable market. And all you need to know is there's a reason why they limit how much you can bet on props, as opposed to, say, a point spread for an NFL Sunday game.
Scott, I find it fascinating when you say that about they spend all their time, the books, as setting the line, setting the over-under, and the Hawks this weekend against Wisconsin, depending when you see this show. But just so you know, going in, our friends at Circus Sports, via social media or circusports.com, go there and you'll see the Hawks are anywhere from a field goal, a little more, a little less, with a hook, depending when you get in. But the Hawks are favored because it's a home game at Kinnick Stadium Saturday night on NBC as we record this on Tuesday afternoon, October 29th. And over-under anywhere from, I've seen it from 40 in the hook to 41, down to 39 in the hook. So kind of all over the map, but check it out. So, Scott, when we talk about this, and I want to do one other thing as we close out the segment with you, because I think you've laid this out. As being a professional sports bettor, there are so many things to consider when you get in. Do you like the early bet? Do you like to wait and go late? Do you do both? Those are other questions I get regularly from our viewers. Hit on that for us, if you would, please, Scotty P.
Your viewers are pretty sharp, as you are, my friend, because you ask very good questions. I've always said, David, that ultimately you want to be on the move early or against it late. Now, Joe the Carpenter from Kalamazoo is not betting on Tuesday. He's betting about 10 minutes before kickoff on Sunday. But me, I'm betting Sunday night, 7 days in advance when the lines first come out, because you have to understand, from a sports betting standpoint, the odds makers, they have 7 days for the sharps, the wise guys, the unfair advantage players like myself to really beat that number into submission. So by kickoff, the number, for all intent and purpose, Dave, it should be accurate. I don't like betting into sharp numbers. I want to bet into soft numbers. I want to get a half point and half, the best of it consistently long term. Doesn't mean I'm going to win, but I should win.
That's the whole point. That's why you're 66+%. So, folks, he is Scott Pritchard, Northeast Iowa native, again, at Pritchard Wins via social media, pritchardspicks.com. Scotty P's got a great show. If you go to pritchardspicks.com, it's Let's Bet every week. Luminaries in the sports betting world, like himself, he has on his guest, does a great job as a host. You see what a great job he is as a guest on the show, or a regular contributor. Scotty P is not a guest, he's a contributor. So I will say this to you, Scott. Let's talk about this real quick. Your contest that you're in, world class. Of course, you're in the Circa. I mentioned Circa, of course, at Circus Sports and circusports.com. You're in their Friday Invitational, which I love, which got expanded from 16 of the world's best sports bettors to now 25 this year of the world's best sports bettors. And why not? The world's biggest and world's best sports book, Circa. Why wouldn't they do that? But you're also doing very well in other contests. So let's give you a little bit of props and street cred here. You don't do it often, so I got to prop you up, pump you up a little bit. Do a little bragging on yourself. Give us some contest updates for us, please, my friend. You're allowed.
I appreciate that. The Circa Invitational is by invite only, 25 of the world's best, to your point, going head to head. Right now, I'm a half game out of second. I'm in third place after taking third place a year ago. It's 7 games, point spreads and totals, college and pro football. Brent Musburger, the living legend, calls it the sharpest hour in sports betting. I like how he thinks. The Golden Nugget contest, 157 people competing. It's point spreads only, college and pro football. You select 7 games every weekend. And at this point, there are 4 people in front of me. And in the Westgate contest right now, I'm clipping along at 61% winners, ATS versus the number. So I need to, I'll take that, but I can do better.
You will do better. I got nothing else to say to that, folks. There he is, Scott Pritchard, Scotty P, at Pritchard Wins via social media, pritchardspicks.com, the Let's Bet show. Check that out as well. Scotty P has paid picks, free picks, 30 plus years as a full-time professional sports bettor in Vegas, Northeast Iowa native. Let's not forget again, 66 plus win percentage. Folks, there he is, Scott Pritchard. Scotty P, it's always great to see you. Thanks for joining us again, as always.
I'll see you again, David. Keep up the good work, my man.
I will if you will, and yes, you will. So, Scotty P, thank you so much. Thanks to Scott Pritchard. Thanks also to Sean Bock and to Pat Angerer and to my production partners at Bettor Edge and BettorEdge.com, Greg Kajewski and James Silas. So, for you, the viewers, I'm Dave O'Hara. That's all from us. Thanks to all of you.